welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show where we talk about short video games, games that respect your time. I am one of your hosts, Reagan Kelly, and I've got three other awesome co-hosts on the line with me today. Laura Nash, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty spectacular. A little tired because I stayed up way too late playing this game.
Oh, well, I guess that counts as preparation. Shane Kelly, my bro host, how are you doing, Shane?
I'm Shane Kelly, and I'm here to say this game made me feel like Bobby Flay.
Oh, my God.
Oh, Lord. And Nate Heininger, how are you doing, Nate?
Well, I was doing well, and then
Until I
Shane,
heard that horrible
You
pun.
heard that rap.
that was... I'm uncomfortable
Is that
for
even a
everyone now. Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Embarrassing myself on this show is just kind of my brand.
Well, that was on brand for sure.
This week we're going to be talking about Overcooked, a game that made a bunch of Best Game of the Year lists 2016, and which we didn't quite make time for in 2016. But here it is, our first game of 2017. Overcooked is a cooking simulation game, in a sense, from Ghost Town Games, and published by Team 17.
Which blew me away. When I saw it, I'm like, no way. That's the company that publishes Worms. I love Worms. We've never done...
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've never,
my God,
like...
I love
realized that either.
Worms.
Yeah, it's a great franchise.
Bit of a sideline, but like, what is the Worms that people are playing now? Like, I haven't played a Worms game in what seems like...
I don't know.
At least 5 years. Is there like the current Worms game?
What are you even playing Worms on now? Like,
Hold on. I've got one in my Steam library that I play sometimes. Let me double check which one it was.
Nate, Worms reporter Nate is on the case.
Worms Reloaded is the one that I have on. I don't even think that's the newest one, but that's the one that I play. It's a great game to play with friends, you know, especially on my laptop. We'll be somewhere and like, play Worms with me. I love Worms. It's been one of my favorite franchises forever. It's so silly. And once I saw that Team 17 was the publisher for Overcooked, I was so excited. And I have to say, there's some like tonal similarities between like the silliness of like the Worms franchise and Overcooked. So
My gosh, they have made 18 Worms games?
yeah, there's
It's
so
like
many.
Katamari Damacy, but
Yeah.
with worms.
That's nuts. Well, Overcooked is a game for Windows, PS4, and Xbox One, and it is pretty much exclusively a multiplayer game. I'm going to be talking probably the least on this podcast, on this episode, for once, because I only got to play the single player of this and only experienced the multiplayer for maybe a half an hour. So I didn't get the full Overcooked experience. But all of the rest of you guys were able to convince your friends and spouses to play multiplayer. And really, that's where the meat of this game lies.
Yeah, and I'm
Meat.
I am so glad that I did. Couch co-op will forever be one of my favorite things in video games. Like going back, it's one of the things that got me into playing video games way back, you know, two-player Nintendo games. So I just love a good game that I can sit with someone and play. And this game did not disappoint. This was a ton of fun.
Sorry, there have been 23 Worms games. I left some of them off the list accidentally.
You probably didn't go into the Worms like Paintball and Worms 3D and stuff like that. You know,
My
the
God.
The Worms
more,
dating sim, the Worms board game.
Yeah, no, I'm not currently counting spin-offs.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Did not mean to derail this with
It
just
was an important update.
slack-jawed counting.
Yeah.
Well, back to Overcooked. Nate, you said that, you know, how much you liked this game. It was kind of a hard sell at first. It's like, I'm playing this game at the podcast. Come on, Justin, we're going to come play this game. Got it all set up. He was a little bit iffy on it. And then about the second level, things started moving. Like, physically, the environment of the kitchen started moving, and I've never seen, like, he physically stepped forward, he got super excited, and he was like, oh, okay, this is on, like, this game is hard. Because I think he thought, cooking sim, casual game, there's no way this game is going to be interesting. And you might have thought that, too, if you just kind of heard cooking sim, multiplayer, like, cartoony, but it gets very, very hard.
It
And
does.
I've played some cooking sims, and I don't tend to like them because they are about being a perfectionist. this game isn't about being a perfectionist. This game is about survival.
Just getting orders out. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in a restaurant, but if you've ever and you've worked in the kitchen, and that moment when there's like way too many orders and everyone is just yelling and running around, that's what it felt like in this, except for imagine that instead of being in a kitchen, you're in like 2 flatbed trucks that also split apart halfway through, and now you're on the highway, or you're serving fried fish to penguins on an on the top of an iceberg, and it's slippery and
or burritos in space.
Burritos in space, yeah. I guess let's set up the game a little bit, kind of get into some more
Sure,
specifics of
I'd
what
love
it is that
to.
you're doing.
So this is a game that is all about communication, right? So the basics of the game are very simple. Orders are going to come into the kitchen, and you need to usually grab an ingredient from an ingredient bin, chop it on a cutting board, and then cook it, plate it, and serve it, right? There's always more orders coming in. If an order gets all the way down, like each order has a timer, and if that timer expires, you basically just lose points. There's an overall kind of global timer that's running at all times, and you just want to do as well as you can in the time you're given. Deliver as many orders as you possibly can. And that is kind of stymied. Your efforts there are blocked by the most disastrously designed kitchens ever invented. Mm-hmm. Some of them they have kitchens that are everything from infested with rats to haunted to in a volcano, or even in outer space. And what really makes this game, like what the game is made to be played as a co-op experience. Mm-hmm. And there are so many games out there that co-op just means take the main character and clone him, and now you can both do all the same things, and they make it harder. And this game is not like that. This is a game where they made working together as a team the goal of the game. Everything is designed in such a way that one person can do it all very, very slowly. 2 people properly communicating can do much, much better.
Yeah, this game is 100% about efficiency, down to the if you really want to ace some of these things, you're counting your steps almost, like charting your routes and assigning roles. And you could not, I would imagine that you cannot beat these levels without, at least some of them, without a firm plan in mind and a discussion of who's doing what. And so to even go more into what Shane was saying about it's not just 2 people doing the same thing. They will actually split up the roles where you are forced to work together. So let's imagine you're just making the simplest thing you can make is a salad. You have to cut up lettuce, you have to cut up tomatoes, you have to put it on a plate, and you serve it. Well, in one of the earlier levels, the tomatoes are on one side, and one player has access to the tomatoes, and on the other side, the player has access to the lettuce. So player A just cannot get lettuce unless player B hands it to him. So you're forced to call things out and organize. And that is the simplest version of it, because it eventually gets to where there's things cooking, things can burn. You need multiple ingredients. Cooking a pizza requires upwards of 5 ingredients put together, put into an oven, and then put onto a plate. So it just gets more complicated. And then the level splits in half, and a bunch of rats come out and grab all your open ingredients, and it's chaos, and it's great.
It's fantastic chaos. And one of my favorite things about the game is there's so many little details in Overcooked, but one of the smartest things they did is give a little thumbnail preview of the level on the selection screen. So when you're about to hit go on the menu, when you are just confirming that everyone's there, they have a little preview window. And we sat there probably, I wouldn't say half, but I'd say a good 10 to 15% of our time on Overcooked was just staring at that screen and arguing about what went wrong and where we were going to do and how this time, okay, on this side, oh, okay, so this, and then we'd try to do this before we played for the first time, and every time we would get had this plan, and then suddenly rats would come out, or suddenly the entire, like, all the walls started moving because the thing was haunted. And so I loved how it surprised you. You thought you could plan, and then the game would just kind of literally throw lava at you.
Yeah, Molly and I had the same experience, but we stopped. We'd look at that thumbnail and be like, okay, so I'm probably going to be on this side. You're probably going to be on this side. Look, there's the lettuce, there's the tomato, there's the fryer, and then yeah, it would be totally different. And so we would start doing that, and then we'd be like, no, this is stupid. We just have to play the level. And then we're probably going to fail the first time, and then we're going to stop, and then we're going to like talk about it, and then we're going to try it again, and then again. And
being able to talk about it with that picture is super helpful.
That what you both are describing, kind of talking between yourselves as the players, is what defines kind of the experience of playing this game for me. Because as a player in this game, if you are not talking to one another, you will fail. And like it's going to throw you all these different curveballs. There's all these ways that it tries to sort of disrupt any plan that you create. Things that move, new orders that come in that have to be discussed, because if you put, tomato on this burger and send it out, that's not the order that I was trying to put together. Look at the damn thing, right? look at the damn order list. So communication is key in this game. And that's what I think makes this game really unique, because unlike other cooperative games that we've covered, like, I think my favorite cooperative game that we've ever played for this show would be Assault Android Cactus. That's a game where almost no communication is required between the two players who in order to work as a team. But in this game, communication is absolutely fundamental.
And I loved how much the game communicated back to you. I loved the error prevention. It's like a really weird thing to congratulate a game on, but I have played cooking sims in the past where you could go all the way to the end and then serve something to the customer, and you'd be like, that pizza has no tomato sauce, and then you would get a 0. In this game, they know the challenge is your communication. So if you try to put one in the oven, it'll say, no tomatoes, or like you try to serve it, they'll be like, no plate. It'll tell you what you did wrong, because that's not the point of the game. And I think it keeps it simple and streamlined and keeps it moving.
You can serve the wrong thing, but
it won't serve the wrong thing, but
it won't let you do an incomplete dish. You're right. Correct. But you can serve the wrong thing, and you get a big red and it feels
Oh, you
terrible.
can give someone who gave a burrito a fish and chips, but you can't like just serve uncooked meat on a plate.
Yeah.
So there's a really, really excellent article about this game, sort of an interview with the developers over at Gamasutra, and I'll try to have a link to that in the show notes. But it really kind of explains why this game's multiplayer or cooperative multiplayer experience is so good. And obviously, this game was designed with that as the kind of fundamental game design idea, building a multiplayer cooperative game that required communication between folks. But like, there's just a few little ideas that once you understand how this game is encouraging you to cooperate, it all builds on itself. The key central idea is like, okay, you've got a kitchen where maybe I need to get things from point A to point B, but there's a countertop in the way, and I can go the long way around that countertop, and it will take me twice as long as it would take to hand something across that countertop to somebody standing on the other side. And so all of the kitchens are kind of based around that central design idea of just the layout of the kitchen is such that you have to cooperate with your colleague, co-player, whatever, to get things from point A to point B in a quick, efficient way. And they start adding more and more complexity on top of that. But that sort of key fundamental idea, we have a kitchen where there's stuff in the way. You have to hand things from person to person in order, you can walk it around, but it will always take longer to do that. And also, what that kind of enforces is this idea that there are always more roles, more jobs to do in the kitchen than there are people to do them. So people are constantly having to juggle between them.
Yeah, what Julia and I constantly ran into on that was washing dishes. As you serve the food, you use up your available plates. And the plates will be returned dirty, and there's a dishwashing station. But actually washing those dishes is very time consuming. And then you have to get the plates over to the food. And so coordinating who was actually on dishwashing duty was a big part of the communication that was required for us. We kept having situations where like someone would be either not paying attention to the dishes or would be paying too much attention to the dishes and being distracted from the more important job of actually preparing the food.
There's no way, really, in almost any of these situations, for each person to kind of pick a job and do it the whole time. There's always slightly more jobs than there are people. And so you're finding you have to, like, shuffle back and forth. And that's what's interesting about it, is that, like, each person is kind of coming up with jobs for themselves to do. You know, a lot of co-op games, there's clearly defined roles for people, clearly defined jobs that you have to do as you're doing it, and each person kind of picks a job. I'm going to heal, or I'm going to be the tank or something. Obviously, that would have to be different. In this context, maybe it would be, I'm going to be the person who does the dishes. But nothing will get done if one person only does the dishes. Everyone has to be flexible and switching back and forth, and that requires communication.
That was kind of our go-to strategy, is we would pinpoint a certain set of things that, like, maybe our character had access to that the other person didn't, or just like we had a good grasp of the level. And a lot of it would be, I would say, okay, what I'm doing in this map is I will be cutting and prepping ingredients. I will be cooking. You will serve, do dishes, and you will do this ingredient. But and that would work sometimes. There were some levels where everyone just have like 2 or 3 roles and you could do it fine. But the game, they've designed it as such to force you to switch up. Sometimes the whole map will turn counterclockwise, and everything you had access to before, you no longer have access to, and the person in the other side has to do it. So it does ultimately require most maps everyone having a total understanding of everything that's going on. And it leads to these like silly shouting, like, well, I was working on the pizza, it still needs mushrooms, and we've got that burrito over there that still needs rice. Get the rice, get the rice. And like, okay, I'm getting the dishes. And just like, it made me think of that game, like Space Team on your phone, which is awesome. And in Space Team, you're shouting nonsense. But it's like orders. In this, you're shouting actually clearly defined situations, but what's happening on your screen is nonsense. I mean,
and it's so funny because I think most of the time when I really screwed up, it would be things like, for example, in the lava game, my strategy was to make like most of a burrito and just leave it on the floor. And Justin was like, and just like run across the lava, stick it on the floor, and run back because Justin had meat and plates, and he could just like put it on the meat and plate and serve it. And he was like, "No, floor burrito is such a good strategy." And you're yelling like completely perfect contextual. Floor burrito was a great strategy, by the way.
That's a sick strat.
Floor burrito was on point.
That's some MLG burrito making right there.
Yeah.
But there also would be times, so you can be really smart and throw those floor burritos, health code be damned, but you also would have times where you would make a full burrito and you would just walk off the edge of the truck and fall into the abyss, and then all the food went away. Or like when things were on on one level, I just kept accidentally dropping things in the trash can because it was right next to where I was supposed to be, and I'd just like throw things away.
Well, there's a
So
map
bad.
where the kitchen is cut in half by a river with floating icebergs that go
Yes.
down, and you have to run across the icebergs, and it's like a Frogger type thing where you have to get onto one iceberg.
Timing is key. And also,
Yeah,
it's
that was
ice,
floor
so it's all
burrito, was
And
slippery.
it's
the
ice
ice
and it's
level was
slippery.
floor burrito.
And there was so many times where someone would be crossing the icebergs with a full dish, and if you fell in, it's gone. So we had to make the rule: no crossing the river with a complete dish. All building of the dish would be on the side that it got served on. If you're crossing, you're just carrying ingredients. And once we made that rule, we were no longer dropping like full on meals into the water.
That is the level that got us Fuller Burrito.
Something that took us a long time to figure out was that there's a run button in this game, because the diagram for the controls,
there's a dash button.
There's no
really?
there's no image of it on the control screen that pops up pretty regularly. I think it's like circle.
It's circle.
And when you hit it, like your little character lets out a little like dust cloud fart and like scoots forward. They don't tell you that anywhere. And when I discovered that, like, it changed a lot for me, because you're able to like get up a little bit of speed and then just like hurl a dish across some gaps and things like that, which is, risky, but sometimes it really pays off.
So that blows my mind, because we beat the game and we beat the first DLC.
Without
and I did not know that is there. So if you're listening, it's not necessary. Maybe we're making it harder for ourselves and just being even more efficient. But I did not know that exists, because it's not on the control page. That's funny.
The controls in that way are a little bizarre. There's a second thing that I think is very weird about the controls, which is that they have an option for 2 players to share one controller.
Yeah.
Huh.
How does that even work?
I put my hand on the left side. You put your hand on the right side. We each get one thumbstick, and the D-pad and the buttons are mirrored. Or you can use the triggers.
I've seen stuff like that done on like the Vita and other handhelds. I think it's actually a kind of a nice option to have, because maybe you don't have an extra controller around.
Yeah.
It's all enabled by the fact that this game has incredibly simple and easy controls. I think it's sort of incumbent on a game that's like kind of a party multiplayer game to have simple controls to make it easy to introduce to people. This game uses 2 buttons. I mean, you could probably play this on an NES controller. This has a button for pickup and a button for like interact, which is mostly like chopping or plating.
And apparently a button for dash.
Apparently that too. Although that's a deep, dark secret of the game.
Yeah, Justin hit it by accident and it changed our lives, except you really can't use it on the ice levels, guys.
That's funny, because I'm the type of player where whenever I play a game for the first time, I hit every single button on the controller to see what it does. But like the control scheme just said the 2 buttons, so I never even accidentally hit another button. It reminded me of that game, Brothers, A Tale of Two Brothers or whatever, where where you're controlling the left brother with the left stick and the left joystick, and the right brother with the right stick and the right button. So I was imagining there's got to be some insane person out there who could play this game 2-player as one person, controlling one chef with one hand and another chef with another hand.
Yeah, and now might actually be a good time to talk about the single player experience of this game, which is pretty weird. So I mostly played this single player, which I don't necessarily recommend. And in a sense, I actually think I would have probably preferred that, like being able to control both cooks simultaneously. But their single player experience for this game is designed around switching between the 2 characters. So contrasting this with something like Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, where they give you kind of an AI partner. Both of these are games that are designed exclusively around a sort of a 2-player or 2+ player cooperative multiplayer experience. That game gave you an AI partner that you could give basic commands, and then they would just do their best. So you tell that your AI partner, which was like your pet, like, go man the guns, and it would shoot at things automatically for you, and it would do the aiming and everything. In this, you've got 2 cooks. There's never less than 2 cooks in the kitchen, but you can toggle between them. And they've tweaked the game a little bit for 2 players. So if you're playing 1 player and controlling both cooks, you switch between them. You can't give your cook individual instructions and then let them do their thing. They just lengthened the amount of time that it takes to do certain actions, like chopping. So I can control 1 cook, tell them to go chop an onion, and switch to cook B, And Cook A will take longer to chop in the single player version than they do in the multiplayer version. But that means that I can then leave them chopping, switch to Cook B, and have Cook B go get some more ingredients, something like that. So it's a kind of a weird hack, I guess, to get a single player experience out of what's fundamentally a multiplayer game. And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't recommend it. This is a 2-player game, 2-player plus, up to 4. And it has a single-player experience that I think is just sort of, part of the requirements of getting this game onto various platforms. I don't even know if it's allowed for you to put out a multiplayer-only game on some platforms, and it's just sort of expected. It's not what I'd recommend.
Yeah, I mean, we've been sitting here talking about how communication is like, it's not only the key to the game, it is also like the game. Like figuring out your plan, figuring out how you're going to do it, assigning the roles and dealing with the mishaps and everything. Like, that's the game. So playing by yourself, while probably I could imagine it would maybe be satisfying to complete, like, it becomes more like a puzzle game than it becomes like a co-op game. Yeah. So this game.
And we should also say no online multiplayer on this one, similar to a lot of the other games that we've talked about that are sort of couch co-op oriented. I don't know if that's primarily a design decision or a technical limitation. I don't think this would be a really hard game to build online co-op for, but it may just have been sort of outside their scope or outside their budget.
I think if you're going to build online co-op for a game like this, you have to include voice chat. And I don't think they could just put you into a matchmaking pool with somebody and have you succeed at this game.
Yeah.
No, but like a server or like you can host games, but not like it's just get online and play.
I would have really liked an option to play this online with Shane or all 4 of us together. Would have been super fun. And we've done online multiplayer games in other games where the PlayStation 4 or other platforms like that have a pretty good support for parties and voice chat. I would really like the opportunity to do that, but this game does not afford it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine this is the same thing we see with other small indie games where they just had to, they have a limited amount of resources, and maintaining an online game is a very, very different set of resources, and requires maintaining. With a game like this, they can finish it, put it out, work on DLC or whatever. If you have online elements, you have a staff that is dealing with constant online elements. So,
as a side note, I would have loved to see platforms make that a little simpler. I'd love to see a simpler developer friendly option from PlayStation, for example, to make it easier to add multiplayer experiences to games like this without the developers having to bend over backwards and spend a lot of money on it.
So I think we've hit a lot of how the game feels, but I think there's a few things still that are worth kind of talking about. Mostly to me for their adorableness. The game is set up in a campaign. It's not just a random series of levels. There's kind of a story. It doesn't really matter, but it's still adorable. There's a big monster attacking. That's the only way it can be kind of satiated is if you can feed it enough. And so you, as your chefs, are kind of traveling the world, learning how to cook different things so that you may be able to...
There's time travel involved.
Yeah, there's time travel, space travel.
It's the 90s now.
Yeah. And there's this a totally unnecessary, but I don't know why I just loved it. There's this overworld where you drive a little bus from map to map, and it there's little trees and little buildings and windmills and stuff that you can drive your little bus around, and you just drive from world 1-1, you beat it, then you get in your little bus, you drive over to world 2-2, or 1-2, you play that one, then you drive your little bus over, and it's just like so silly and felt so unnecessary, but it just it was fun to.
And I loved the weird, goofy character designs. I think I mentioned that Justin was in when the game started moving. I think the second time that Justin got really excited, and I did too, was we saw a raccoon. We're like, oh, we could play as a raccoon. And he goes, and it's in a wheelchair, which meant then the little raccoon wheelchair, because we were zooming all over the place with the dash button. When he does the dash button, it's like a little cloud and he like almost pops a wheelie. Like it's the cutest.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
There's a
Characters
ton of
are
thing.
super
That
characters.
raccoon dashes.
Differently abled raccoon was a highlight of this game for me.
Yeah, there's little like a little cat, little bunnies,
Super
little like
weird.
there's just a ton of fun little characters. It's all super delightful, and like it just adds
Lovely
to
brown
this-
woman with bright red, thick
Bright red
glasses
glasses.
that Justin
Yeah.
played for with half of them.
Ugly
Yeah.
old guy.
Grumpy man. Yeah.
a cardboard box head guy, which I played with a lot.
Not to mention the like tiny armed Onion King with the enormous mustache, who is on all the box
Dog.
art. He's great.
The dog's name was Kevin, which was what we called our cat for like 2 months before we found out the sex and named her.
I also love the Onion King has a whiteboard. At the beginning of the game is empty, and as it goes on, it gets increasingly like a beautiful mind conspiracy theorist with string, but it's all like ingredients. It's like different parts of a burger.
Yeah.
No bearing on the plot whatsoever.
So what were some of your guys' favorite? What was your favorite thing to make, or what was your least favorite thing to make?
I liked burritos because it used a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Because you had to chop steak, fry it, and you had to cook rice in pots. And then we got a burner problem. And you then have to do tortillas and a plate. So I liked the fussiness of a burrito because we thought it was going to be super fun. And then we were like, oh, wait, no, this is terrible. We're on a lava island and everything is rotating and all the frying pans are on your side. And this is just the worst thing. These kitchens are so badly designed.
I think like different from it's not about what recipes you like, and this is one of the places where this game differs from a lot of cooking games is that there's actually comparatively a small number of recipes in this game. And the recipes are really relatively straightforward, and there's hinting on screen for you for every step of the process. It's all about the disruptions that they put in between you and actually completing those recipes. So you'll have maybe like the first 5 or 10 levels, and you'll maybe learn 2 different recipes. And I think and there's almost never a situation where you're making 2 different recipes in the same kitchen. It's all about just being able to complete one simple task, in the face of, lava and penguins.
Yeah, and also we haven't mentioned if you leave things cooking for too long, they catch on fire, and then the fire spreads, and you have to grab a fire extinguisher to put it out. And sometimes with the segmentation of levels, if you're not careful, you'll have something cooking, and then there'll be an earthquake, and the level will split in half. And if you didn't have someone who was over there when it got split on half, well, that's for sure going to burn and catch on fire. And then you have to find the fire extinguisher and put it out. I liked making pizza. I thought it was a cool concept. You had to get the dough, chop up the dough, then you had to get the cheese, the sauce, and then there was is it a mushroom pizza? Is it a sausage pizza? Is it onion pizza? Is it all of them? It had the most amount of ingredients, and then you had to bake it. They also do a really good job of each level has 3 different score rankings, and you're awarded stars. If you do a terrible job, you get no stars. Then going upwards to 3 if you do a good job on the level. And those stars act as a currency to unlock the next level. So it forces you very casually, because the requirements aren't super high, but it does force you to 3-star a reasonable amount of levels to actually get to the, if you want to beat the game, you're going to have to have 3-starred, I would say probably around 60% of the levels to actually unlock the last level. 3-star, and then the rest all being 2 stars. You can't beat the game just doing 1 star or below. And with that, what's really nice is that the requirements to 3-star level are not perfection. It's just asking for a certain level of like competency.
So I was so sure I was going to love this game that I bought the bundle, which has a DLC that seems to be like gourmet themed, and then they also call The Last Morsel, and then there was a second one called the Holiday themed, and the art on it shows everybody around a table eating a turkey, which sounds terrifying and perfect. So I'm really excited to play that. There's more modes. There's a competitive mode we didn't even touch. Like, it seems like I will be playing this game for a lot longer than I anticipated, because I thought it was going to be more of a party game, and I didn't expect to get sucked into the campaign and really want to keep playing. Because often with party games, I play a level, I'm set. Like, didn't get through a lot of the Wii games that were like that unless I was at a party. I think I'm going to keep playing this for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I played the winter DLC, and it's awesome. You do learn how to make a turkey dinner. You got to cut up potatoes. You got to, you got to roast. You get a flamethrower to roast the turkey, and then you have to roast the potatoes, and then you have to roast carrots. And people order a turkey with potatoes and carrots, or just a turkey, or whatever. And there's some really interesting levels with conveyor belts and the range of the flamethrower, which is pretty funny. I did play 3-player. The campaign played 3-player, which was fun. Another set of hands in the kitchen. I think the orders go a little bit faster. I will say that what made it the difficulty factor was that your players don't clip through each other. So
yeah.
So space actually becomes a thing, and like there's a lot of maps where it's like one player fits through a certain row, and you'll have 3 of us who are all, trying to do your own thing kind of, and is like, get out of my way, Jesus Christ, I need to, like, the soup's burning, and a lot of like screaming at each other to get out of each other's way, which didn't happen as much for 2-player. So I can imagine 4-player is a lot of people like stepping on each other.
My wife and I had a moment when we were playing this game where she was just really just full-throated shouting at me, telling me, that I was screwing up. And I just started shouting back, and I was like, we need to take a break.
Yeah. I have to say, there's a similar experience. This game can be frustrating because there's sometimes where I felt like, and this is, if I had any, like, I don't even know if this is criticism because this might have been intentional, but there's some times where it feels like, it's like the hitboxes felt wrong, like I know that I was like angled the right way and I was setting something down and it just like hits the floor, or like I'm trying to set something on a burner and it sets it like right next to the burner, and it's
or you
like,
put the fire extinguisher accidentally in the corner of the room and you can't reach it and everything's on fire.
yeah,
It was a real good bug for me.
So like sometimes it felt like this game needed one more coat of polish on like the way things interact with each other. Also, they used the wrong "it's" one time.
Nope.
And I'm just like, how did that make it through the game? But that, that's whatever.
Don't they have like a quality assurance on these things? What are they doing?
So I loved this game. There are some frustrating times when things are not going the way you want them to go. But I will say, Molly and I played for like 4 hours, and then we went grocery shopping. We were like a strike force at that grocery store. It was like we were like efficiency was on our brain. There was a point where we were at the cash register, and Molly goes, "Cart coming down," and she's like pushing the cart, and I'm like, got the cart, like exactly what we were doing when we were playing the game, just like shouting out what we were doing and shouting out that we acknowledged that the other person was doing these things. So
ultimately good for your marriage or bad for your marriage?
It just put us in this like hyper mode of like what is like the least amount of steps we can take on anything that we do in our lives. Fortunately, that's kind of died down, but it was
Cheaper by the dozen style.
it was pretty funny. You get in this like mode of just like, I don't know, the game, especially if you play it for a long, like an extended amount of time, you are just like constantly thinking about like, what route should I take? What's the best way to do this? Who does what? I cut this. I set it here so you can pick it up exactly when you're done picking that up. Like, I'm plating this. Do you have a dish? You know, it's just like constant shouting at doing tasks.
So Jess and I went from playing this game to working at a food bank, and we were sorting sweet potatoes, and we were the team like obsessively like, okay, pick up, check. Hey, this is the fastest way to tie a bow. Like, what is the fastest way to like we were checking bread for expiration dates and packing it, and people were packing it slowly. So I was like, okay, we're going to reorganize all the bread so that it's by size so that people can put it in the right. I was like, we were the most obnoxious people. Like, I'm sure they were
awesome.
like, yay, we love volunteers, but not those two.
Yeah, come on, keep a chiller atmosphere here at the volunteer food bank.
Yeah, they're like, it's a Saturday, guys.
That's pretty funny. It reminded me a little bit of, remember the game Papers, Please?
Mm-hmm.
Which was all about like efficiency of like hand movement. I was kind of getting a little bit of that sometimes, except for you had to get someone else to also be as efficient, or someone had to get you to be as efficient. Whereas Papers, Please was just like, I'm playing this game by myself.
So it's a bit of a side note, but I wanted to do a brief call out to another cooking game that I strongly, strongly recommend. If you liked Overcooked and are looking for a more in-depth or hardcore game, or if you're looking for a cooking game that is more designed around a single-player experience, although it does have multiplayer, but it's a primarily single-player game, I cannot recommend enough Cook Serve Delicious, which is available on all sorts of things from the iPad to Steam to the PlayStation 4. Jamie and I played a lot of Cook Serve Delicious, although individually we didn't really try the multiplayer element. But it's another cooking game, or you have a small restaurant and you kind of build up your restaurant by cooking better dishes, attracting a more wealthier clientele, building up your restaurant, going from like a small diner in the basement of a high rise all the way up to like a 4-star restaurant, right? And what really set this one apart was that its recipes are relatively complex, but it becomes almost like a Typing of the Dead style competition. If you've played Typing of the Dead, you're typing in little like codes. Well, you might have a hamburger recipe where you've got 10 possible ingredients to use, and each person who comes in requests a hamburger with a different subset of those ingredients, and each of them has a key on your keyboard. And I played them mostly on a PC. This is done a little differently on consoles where you have a controller. But somebody might say, I want a burger I want it medium, I want it with lettuce, and I want it with onions. And you might, put the meat on the grill with the, M key. I don't remember the keyboard keys off the top of my head now. And then you might add lettuce by hitting the L key and tomatoes by hitting the T key. It becomes this like incredibly fast-paced, almost like a typing game, but more fun than that makes it sound. I cannot recommend Cook Serve Delicious enough. It is an absolutely stellar game. And Cook Serve Delicious 2, that came out the original game came out in 2013. It's been a little while. Cook Serve Delicious 2 is coming out in 2017. I absolutely cannot wait. Not so much a short game, but I wanted to mention it since we're talking about cooking games.
I have not played very many cooking games, but that sounds great. The only other one I can think of was the Nintendo Wii one called Cooking Mama's Cook-Off.
Oh, man, yes.
Which is
so many Cooking
insanity.
Mama games.
Yeah,
so good.
It's insanity. So that sounds great.
I actually learned a lot of interesting food stuff from cooking games. And Cooking Mama in particular, like, you learn about, like, obviously those are Japanese games, so you learn about, like, Japanese recipes that you wouldn't otherwise know about. And then I've later gone back and like had those in person and realized, oh, actually Cooking Mama was doing a pretty good job of explaining what this is. It's really fun. Cooking games are a great way to like learn about food, which is a weird thing to say.
That makes sense. It's the primary subject matter. So
yeah.
I would imagine you at least learn a little bit about food.
So I totally recommend Overcooked and Cook Serve Delicious if you want a single player experience. But Overcooked is absolutely a fantastic party game. If you haven't tried it, it's available on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and on Steam. If I recall correctly, I think it's available on both Mac and PC, but I may be wrong about that. Do you guys know? Oh, no. I'm sorry. It looks like just Windows. Another little side note, if you are the sort of person who likes collecting physical copies of their games better than they enjoy like digital downloads, obviously this is a downloadable game, but if you want the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 version, you can buy it for $20 on a disc on Amazon. I think it's probably available other places as well. And that version includes the first DLC. So it comes out to basically the same price as the download. If you prefer a disc copy, you can do that.
Yeah, I can't recommend this game enough. I mean, you will yell at whoever you're playing with, but hopefully you'll laugh more than you'll yell at each other. I think we really hit the fun side of this game the most. This game is a lot of you and whoever you're playing with yelling at each other to do things. So I hope that sounds fun to everyone. I can't recommend it enough. It sits up there. Shane, Super Android Cactus has been probably my favorite multiplayer game that we've done, like couch co-op. But this is very different, and this scratches a lot of itches, and this is a game that I cannot recommend enough for people who like couch co-op.
So what are we playing next, guys?
We are going to play Pony Island, the very, very strange little beast of a game that is.
So that one made a lot of interesting like best of the year lists in 2016, and we didn't get around to playing it, but we're going to correct that error here in January 2017. So if you have thoughts about Pony Island, let us know. You can write to us on Twitter at _shortgame, or you can drop by our website, www.theshortgame.net, where you can leave us a comment. There's a contact form there. That's a really good way to get in touch with us if you like longer form stuff. I've been one of your awesome co-hosts, Reagan Kelly. You can find me on Twitter at Reagan K. That's RAYGANK. Where can people find you guys? Laura?
You can find me on Twitter at Laura J. Nash.
Nate?
You can find me on Twitter at NateSTL, and to piggyback on Reagan, we've recently received several emails and some tweets from people recommending games, and I just have to double down saying how much we love hearing from you guys. So please keep that up, because we got some awesome feedback and some awesome suggestions.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for dropping us a line. We really, really enjoy that. We all read them. We all try to make sure I respond to all of them. If you didn't receive a reply from me from one of those, please forgive me, and please do reply back. But I'm pretty sure I've caught most of them. Shane, where can people find you?
You can find me over on Twitter at 8BitShane.
And one last thing to mention, this is a time of year where we would really love to get some ratings and reviews on iTunes. I know it's dumb. iTunes is one of those programs that kind of people love to hate. But if you have a moment, dropping us a review on iTunes, a nice positive review, is a really big way to help the show. We do not ask for money. We don't run ads. We don't have a Patreon or anything like that. But the best way that you can help the show if you like us is to leave us a review, and we really do appreciate those. So thank you guys so much for joining us all the way into 2017. This is going to be a really exciting year for the show, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.